Hello there and welcome to my paint guide for the Zombicide Rio Z Janeiro add-on pack. This is part 3 and we're going to start the first 3 zombies. I sprayed 2 black and 1 white using the Colourforge paint sprays. The reason why I did this is because 2 of them are going to have a much darker skin tone than the other. First thing I'm going to do is start with the guy in shorts, so I'm going to paint his shorts with Mephiston red. This will then get washed with some Carroburg crimson. And while that dries, we're going to move on to the runner. We're going to paint her skirt with some Thunderhawk blue, which will get a wash of Drakenhof Nightshade. And as that wash dries, I'll move on to the walker with the hat. So he's going to get his jeans painted with some rust grey, which will be washed with some Drakenhof Nightshade. Next we'll move back to the guy in the trunks, so I'm going to use some Mephiston red just to tidy up the wash that we painted earlier, making sure we don't paint into the recesses. This will then be highlighted with a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and Evil Sunz Scarlet, before a highlight of Evil Sunz Scarlet just by itself. Much like the trunks guy, the runner will have her skirt repainted with some Thunderhawk blue, making sure we don't paint into the recesses. Then I'll mix in some matte white to the Thunderhawk blue for a 50-50 ratio for the first set of highlights. And then we'll add a dash more of the matte white, so we've got a 30-70 ratio in favour of the matte white for the second and final highlight. I'm then going to paint her top with some Emperor's Children. Now, because we're painting on black and we're using a very light colour, this will take at least 2 coats, probably 3. This will then get washed with some Carroburg crimson. For the walker with the hat, we're going to relayer his jeans with some rust grey, followed by a 50-50 mix of rust grey and matte white. And then we'll add some more matte whites for a 30-70 mix in favour of matte white for the final highlight. He appears to be a supporter of whatever football team that Ney played with, so we are going to use Macragge blue to paint that in, which will then be washed with some Drakenhof Nightshade. Then we'll relayer the runner's top with some Emperor's Children, which will then highlight with a mix of Emperor's Children and Fulgrim Pink. The mix will once again be a 50-50 ratio. I'll then move back to Hat Guy, where we will use Macragge blue mixed with some Calgar blue for a 50-50 ratio to start highlighting, followed by a 30-70 split in favour of Calgar blue to do the second highlight. The 2 models that were sprayed black will then get their flesh painted with some Mechanicus Standard Grey, while Rakarth flesh is used to paint Hat Dude. We'll then wash all that flesh with some Reichland Flesh Shade. Once that wash is dried, we're going to use a couple of coats of thinned down Dawnstone to start highlighting all the muscles. For the lighter skin tone, we're going to use some thinned down Flayed One flesh. I'm then going to use some Carroburg crimson to kind of put a different shade into the eyes, as well as any areas where it looks like the muscle or the skin has torn away, exposing the muscle underneath, which we'll come back to later. I'm then going to use Pallid Witch flesh to paint the teeth and the eyes. Next, on the guy with the shorts, I'm going to paint his mask with some Macragge blue, which will get washed with some Drakenhof Nightshade. While that dries, I'm going to sort out the detail on the guy with the hat's shirt. I'm going to use some white to mark off the outer edge, just like we did with Ney. Then I'm going to use Avalanche Sunset to pick out the minor details. And they'll be highlighted with some Flash Gits yellow. I'm then going to use Calgar Blue to highlight the mask of the guy with the shorts. And I'm going to use Xerxes Purple to paint in all the feathers on top of the headdress. At the same time, I will also paint the female zombie's shoe as well. Both of these will then be washed with some Druchii Violet. I'll paint Hatwalker's shoe black with Abaddon black. And I'm also going to use Abaddon black to paint his belt. And I'm then going to use Corvus black to highlight both of them. I'm going to use Mephiston red to paint Hat Guy's hat, which I'll then give a wash with Carroburg crimson, almost completing the Sideshow Bob look apparently. While that wash dries, I'll make a 50-50 mix of Xerxes purple and matte white to start highlighting the shoe on the runner and the headdress for the guy in his shorts. Try to take a little bit extra care with the headdress, sort of use the edge of the brush rather than the full side, just so you can like pick out the tiny little details of the feathers. There's a strap holding the mask of the face, so I'm going to paint that with some Abaddon black. And then I'm going to use Corvus black to highlight the hair on the runner. Evil Sun Scarlet will be used to highlight the hat on Sideshow Bob. And then I'm going to use some Screamer Pink to paint in the areas where the skin has torn away from the muscle. Now, with the majority of the painting out of the way, I'm going to start painting on the base. So I'm going to use some Dawnstone Grey to paint all the bases. And they'll get stippled with some Corvus Black. And with some Grey Sear. And to finish off the concrete look, we're going to paint in some cracks with some Corvus Black. Then we'll tidy up the rims with some Abaddon black. And use some watered down Agrax Earthshade to cover the entire base. These last two steps you can completely skip if you like, but I'm going to paint the entire model with some anti-shine matte varnish. This will help protect them when they're in their case, as the plastic in the box can sometimes pull away at that paint. And then finally, I'm going to use some Blood for the Blood God to paint in some gore. I'm going to put it around the mouth, maybe dripping down onto the chest. I'll do it from the open wounds and put some on their hands. But it's entirely up to you where you want to place it. And there we go, that's the first 3 zombies done, 2 walkers and a runner. These guys are super easy and super fast to paint and quite frankly, a lot of fun. All in all, they only took about 2.5 hours to complete. I hope you found this guide useful, and if you've enjoyed it, please give us a subscribe and tune in for the final part of the series, and I will see you then. Goodbye for now.